I'm Jason, and this is the wrong hockey mask, isn't it? Ah, shit. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and movie lovers of all kind, and welcome back to another Super Series Tuesday. And for today, we will be covering the first of 4 iconic horror movie franchises that I will be covering throughout the month of October, and that is going to be Friday the 13th. Friday the 13th was released in 1980. It was directed by Sean S. Cunningham, stars Betsy Palmer, Ardeen King, and Kevin Bacon. And the story follows a group of young teens who travel to Camp Crystal Lake in order to try and fix it up and reopen it. All is going well until some people start showing up dead. So Friday the 13th is obviously iconic at this point, as well as Jason, the series' main killer. Everyone knows the hockey mask, everybody knows the machete. This franchise has had 10 original movies, a reboot, a crossover. This franchise is absolutely huge, and of course there's word going on now that there's going to be another reboot coming at some point. But for this video we are traveling all the way back to the original, the one that started it all. So to kick off the positives, guys, is the twist at the end of the movie. I guess there's actually kind of a double twist at the end of the movie with the actual ending, but the one I'm talking about is the reveal of the killer. I feel like people back in the 80s when this movie first dropped did not expect it, and I have to say I honestly think it was genius. It was leading towards one thing so heavily, and then all of a sudden, boom! Especially if you go back and watch this movie now, knowing what the franchise has become, it's actually really quite surprising. Next is the score to this movie, and I actually read just recently that they tried to use less music in this movie, considering only released 2 years after Halloween, which used a lot of John Carpenter's score, but I still think that it is very, very well done. When the score is actually in there, it makes the scenes so much more intense, so much more frightening. It's just pretty much all string music, but it is very well done. It's very creepy and very eerie, and I love it, and especially the beautiful. Next is the gore in this movie, because this movie is surprisingly extremely gory. Especially, again, this is something that shocked everybody. It obviously drew comparison from Halloween, which released 2 years prior, but Halloween really wasn't that gory. This movie is actually pretty gory, even by today's standards. And again, no CGI, so it's all practical effects, and they are done very well. And lastly, for the positives, is the setting of this movie. Again, coming off Halloween, being set in Haddonfield, going to this kind of secluded Camp Crystal Lake, you really feel like the teens are really helpless, like they just can't go anywhere, they can't do anything. This is all new ground to them, and they're so secluded from the rest of the world. Now for the middle ground is the acting itself. The acting is actually pretty solid. Not necessarily the characters, but the acting is solid. But then you get towards the end, and you really start to notice that some of the characters get under your skin, and the overacting especially is ridiculously annoying, so the acting altogether kind of lands in the middle ground. But that means I can just segue right into my first negative, and the first negative is actually the overacting in this movie, because especially during the whole final chase sequence, the overacting is absolutely ridiculous. It's just laugh out loud funny. I don't even know how people in the 80s weren't laughing in the theater. They might have been, I have no idea. It's so over the top, it's ridiculously enjoyable because of how stupid it looks, but when you're trying to take the movie seriously as a slasher and trying to be, afraid for these people, you kind of can't when the overacting is just that insane and plainly stupid. And next, I'm going to contribute again because it really did just bother me, and I'm really just picking apart this whole final act here, but the final chase, again, is just horrible. It goes on for way too long. It's like 15 minutes of the movie, and it's just so unenjoyable that you really are just like, alright, come on, end now, please, and you shouldn't be like that when it's the final chase. You look at Halloween, that whole final act there is just nail-biting, and it's so well done, versus this, where it's just overacting and nonsensical and just, plain annoying. You just want it to end. It's gotta get a negative for that too. And the last 2 negatives very quickly are the fact that the characters overall are bland. Like I said, the acting was solid. The characters are bland. You don't really get to know anything else about them. They're just a group of teens, and they're just a group of teens. And lastly, like I said, when I was talking about the gore, is the fact that the deaths in this movie aren't really good. A lot of them go in the first-person perspective to try and hide the identity of the killer, which is fine because the first-person perspective is actually a really neat trick, and it's something that was really well done. Of course, they took it from Halloween, which, fun fact, Halloween took it from Black Christmas, which was a Canadian-made film from 1974. The deaths themselves aren't really anything. A lot of it is just like, the camera pans in, and then the person just goes like a first-person view, and the person just goes, oh, or ah, or bleh, and makes these weird faces and noises and falls over. But then the aftermath is gory and cool and fun. So guys, those are my thoughts on Friday the 13th, the original 1980 version. With all that being said, guys, I'm going to be giving Friday the 13th a 6.5 out of 10. So folks, if you like this video, be sure to like, subscribe, and comment. Let me know, what are your thoughts on the original Friday the 13th? Do you believe it deserves its icon status? Or do you just think it's a sad, cheap knockoff of Halloween? And be sure to hit me up on social media. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Links will be in the description and at the end of the video. And be sure to check back every Friday to my Instagram page for Fan Vote Friday. The second round of the Halloween Challenge will be starting this Friday, October 12th. So be there or be square and vote. And as always, folks, thank you so much for watching, and that's a wrap. And today we're going to be comparing Venoms. So which Venom is better? Venom from Spider-Man